Hello in the first lecture of my course about dragon variation in Sicilian defense. In the first chapter we are going to see some best games played in dragon system. Of course all of the games will be won by black, but surely things are not that simple. But still what we are going to see, I think this is quite promising. Okay, so I'm not going to introduce more, just let's take a look at the games. The first game will be between Nisipeanu and Carlsen, played in 2010. Of course, we are going to start with a dragon, and the starting position of it is this, after the move g6. Here Nisipeanu played the move bishop e3, this is of course one of the main lines. Of course the move knight g4 is also possible, but Carlsen played here simply developing move bishop g7. Probably he didn't want to make a draw after the move bishop c1, knight f6 and bishop e3. f3, knight c6, queen d2, castles kingside, castle queenside, and the move d5. This is one of the most important positions of the dragon system. King b1 was played by Nisipeanu, and here very interesting the move rook b8. Of course, there's also possibility of playing knight d4, and after e5 there is still plenty of fury, which of course we are going to see. There are some interesting possibilities, like for example knight f5, ef6, and taking with the pawn on from the line e. But okay, this is not the topic of this game. We are going to see in the fury chapter in next lectures. Rook b8 was played here by Carlsen Magnus. Knight db5. Of course, there are some other moves as always. For example, h4, h5, bishop e2, simply completing the development. Or even immediately bishop e2 and waiting for black what he is going to do. In the game, Nisipeanu played the move knight db5, a6, and quite a peculiar looking move, knight a7, just going to this square, which is very unusual for white's knight. But okay, this of course has some venom. Carlsen simply ignored this knight and played the move e6. g4, starting some immediate attack against black's king. After ed5, still the position would be very complicated and complex. So g4, rook e8, very precise move. Carlsen is not, of course, forcing anything here, and the move rook e8 is simply perfectly playable. And after g5, knight h5. Of course, it may look like that the knight on h5 is not standing the best, but it's very important there, because after playing on h5 there will be no march of the h pawn. Let's also have a look at some other variation. For example, if black would play knight d7, then ed5, ed5, knight d5, simply grabbing a pawn, but still the position is complicated. Knight d5, bishop b6, attacking the queen on d8, queen d7, f4, right now attacking another black's piece, which is the knight on e5, knight f3, queen f2, knight fd4, bishop c4, and definitely prospects for white are much better than in the game. So this is why Magnus chose to play the move knight h5, bishop f2. For example, here if knight c8, then black is not forced to take on c8, but he can simply attack the bishop on e3 and the knight on c3 with the move d4. And only after the move bishop f2, then rook c8, knight e2, and position for black looks quite promising. And here the move bishop f2. Bishop d7, again very well played by the world champion. ed5, ed5, queen d5, very unfortunate decision from Nisipeanu. Of course, he should have gone for the move knight d5. After the move bishop e6, d4, or even knight c6, bc6, knight b6, bishop d5. Very nice tactics from black. Of course, taking on d5 would result with catastrophe on the b2 square. So white couldn't take on d5. But he can of course play the move c4. Bishop f5, king a1. After bishop d3, queen d3, queen g5, black simply regains a pawn. So, bishop f5, king a1, rook a8, knight c6, bc6, knight c3, queen a5, and to me the position still looks very attractive and very active for black, despite that he is lacking a pawn. Of course, it was still much better than queen d5. Here, knight e5. Right now, the knight on a7 is absolutely out of play. Queen b3. What about move h4? Then bishop e6, queen c5, knight d7, queen b4, and again white has some troubles with the knight on a7. So queen b3, immediately going back with the queen. Queen g5. Right now the material is equal, and it is only black who can play for a win. Knight e4, queen f4, very good square for queen. Is dominating, and white has really big problems on his king side. Bishop e2, bishop e6, queen a3, knight c4, and right now black has even the bishop pair. Knight d6, bishop f8, some good small tactics. Rook d4, queen e5. After queen g5, rook c4, queen g2, and of course black is regaining a piece with still some very good initiative. But in the game it was played queen e5, rook c4, bishop d6. Of course, white took at least one of the bishops, but still the position is so active, and as usual in this game, the knight on a7 is just getting weaker and weaker. After queen e2, queen c3, or even queen d3, then queen f2, rook e8, knight e8, rook e8, rook d4, knight f4, queen d2, knight e2, and again the catastrophe with the knight on a7. Okay, so bishop d6, queen d3, and going back with the bishop, black's king is absolutely safe, and suddenly white can have some problems with his king. a4, rook b d8, queen b3, queen d5, very smooth play from Magnus Carlsen. Queen d2, bishop e3. It was of course also possible to play the move rook c7, but it wouldn't change the result of the game probably. Queen e2, bishop b6, rook d1, and because there will be simply a mate, white resigned. Just let's have a look how the game could have ended. After rook e1, queen c4, queen a1, king b3, rook b1, and simply white is losing. Very well played from Magnus Carlsen, absolutely dominating in this game. So I think this was very nice from the world champion. Let's move on to the next game. The next game will be even faster. It was played way back in 1995 against Viswanathan Anand and Kasparov Gary. So both of them are just so well known chess players. I do not need to say who are they. Of course, the starting position of the dragon. Again, the move bishop e3. Anand Viswanathan wasn't expecting this system because he expected probably Scheveningen the most. So this was definitely some surprise for him in this game. Knight c6, f3, castles, bishop c4, bishop d7, h4, and just not letting white to push more, or even to start with that attack after the move g4. Kasparov simply played the move h5. Bishop b3, rook c8, knight c6. This is probably not the best idea to take on c6 in Dragon, generally speaking. Probably Anand was hoping for some calm game and at least to make a draw, because as I mentioned previously, he was very much surprised with this system. But definitely knight c6 wasn't the best idea. Bishop h6, going for some simplifications, but still it doesn't help much white. d5, bishop c4, maybe bishop g7 was a better idea. After king g7, queen e2, queen c7, bishop c4, rook b8, castles. This is just a normal position in Dragon variation. Black isn't much better. Of course, the variation which we are going to see here is not the most precise, but there was some games in that line. After e5, white is much better right now, but I'm pretty sure that Kasparov would play much more precise. Okay, bishop c4 was played by Anand Vishwanathan. Queen b6. Again, after rook b8, castles, rook b4, bishop b3. White lost some tempo with his bishop. After queen c7, bishop g7, and rook d4. The position may be unclear, but I think that it's about approximate equal. Okay, let's go back to the game. Queen b6, bishop g7, king g7, b3. White simply doesn't want to castle queenside, and he is just waiting for his opponent. Bishop e6, very well played. Black is not afraid of doubling his e-pawns because he will get some very active play. Knight d5, bishop d5, e d5, and e5. Very well played by Garry Kasparov. After e6, probably black would simply lose a tempo because he would need to play anyway the move e5. So the move e5 is definitely a better choice. d6, this is very bad move. Probably Anand didn't calculate it so good. Of course, he should just go for the move castle queenside, and there will be quite a similar play to the previous note which I showed you after move e6. But of course, black has move more. d6 is the move which is probably already losing. d5, bishop e2, e4. Of course, right now it is impossible to castle kingside, and also impossible to castle queenside, because there are such moves like, for example, c3 or even cb3, ab3, and queen b3, and white would simply lose. d3. This is again not the best choice. Of course, as I mentioned, castling queenside would be even worse. But of course, he should just play the move rook d1, the only move in that position. After c3, queen d4, fe6. For sure, this is not so good position for white, but it's still far from end. So c3, and here after rook c8, bc4. Probably it's already the end. Let's have a look at some possible line after ef7, rook f7, rook f1. Of course, this is a very bad looking move, but what else? For example, if rook d1, then rook fe7, rook e1, d4, cd4, knight d5, and white's position is absolutely collapsing. So after rook f1, rook fe7, rook f2, simply very nice mate after queen g1. So you can see some possible lines for white, that everything is just so bad for them. Rook e6, king f1. cd5 again wouldn't change much. After rook e5, f4, rook d5, queen c2, queen e3. It's very tough to even say what white need to play. For me, this position is absolutely lost. Computer may hold this position for a while, but I think that it's very unpleasant. So in the game it was king f1, rook fe8, bishop d3, dc4, bishop c4 and knight e4. Very nice end from Garry Kasparov. Let's have a look at possible line after fe4, rook f6, king e1, rook e4, bishop e2, and this is of course the end. If white would try something else, for example queen e1, then simply rook d6. There's even no material advantage for white, which is only making things worse. And of course this is obviously lost position for white. Very dynamic play from Garry Kasparov. I think that he loves to play such positions. And of course some unfortunate decisions from Anand Vishwanathan. And this is why this game was so quick and so easy. The last game will be between Dominguez Perez Lanier and Carlsen Magnus. As you can see, Carlsen played a lot of games in Dragon. This was some of his, I would say, pet system against e4. cd4, knight d4, knight c3, g6, bishop e3, bishop d7, f3, knight c6, queen d2, castles, bishop c4, bishop d7, castle queenside, and here a very interesting idea, which is called the Chinese Dragon, the move rook d8, bishop b3, knight a5. After knight e5, f4, knight eg4, h3, knight e3, queen e3. There's of course a slight edge for white, but there's of course plenty of play. This is one of the possible lines, of course. Instead, Carlsen played knight a5, bishop h6. There are plenty of possible lines in Chinese Dragon. I'm not going to show you all of the possibilities because this is not the topic of this lecture. This is one of the possible lines, quite a typical play for Dragon variation. Just opening the b file, and there will be quite a nice initiative along the b file. Okay, Dominguez chose the plan to exchange this dangerous, as always, Dragon bishop, bishop h6, queen h6, b5, g4. After h4, it was a possibility to play e5, knight d2, b4, and there is again quite nice play for black. So g4 was the choice of Dominguez. Knight b3, and of course there was also quite a nice trap from white, because after e5, knight f5, and suddenly the position of black becomes very tough and very dangerous. Of course, Carlsen noticed that possibility and he just took on b3. Knight b3, b4, knight d5, knight d5, ed5, and rook b6. Very interesting idea. Bishop a4 is not the best move because the attack from white is very fast. And black still will need to take some time to start his action. So rook b6 I think is a very good move. Rook h e1. Let's have a look what if white is simply continuing his attack. Then e5, d6, fe6. Of course after h5 then it comes g5. And after queen e3 then queen f6, knight c5, dc5, rook d7, rook a6, queen h6, and this is of course an easy draw. So this is one of the possible lines. After we move to h4, Instead, Dominguez chose not to attack directly his opponent and just to consolidate his pieces. e5. This is a very useful idea. d6, fe6. Right now there is a plenty of play for black on f-file. Rook e3. f4 is a bad idea because black gets very active and very fast attack. So f4 is absolutely senseless. Better would be to play the move queen d2. And after rook f3, knight d4, g5, rook f7, knight e6, it is white who is better. So of course black should play something else, not to take on f3. Rook e3, still it is a possible move for white. Rook f7, knight d2, d5. After rook a6, king b1, bishop c6. Of course, queen a5 and a3 and everything is holding for white. So bishop c6, rook e6, bishop d5. Very sharp play, just typical for dragon, I would say. Bishop d5, knight e4, rook a1, king d2. White is not in danger. White's king is not in danger. He can just play in that way. But okay, Carlsen just decided to play the move d5. Knight b3, queen c7. King b1, some small prophylaxis. After knight d4, rook a6. King b1. Again, there's a very double-edged play. So, queen c7, king b1. Very good prophylaxis, as I mentioned. Rook b8, going back with the rook. Rook d1. This is probably not the best idea. Better was just to go back with the queen to h4. After rook bf8, queen f2, rook f4, queen e2. There is an approximate equality. Rook on e1 is doing probably not much, and there's also the important square on d4, which is now undefended. Rook c8, rook 1 to e2. And here we can see why it was very bad, because right now white would be losing, because he needs to spend some tempo to defend the knight on d4. This is why Dominguez was forced to go back to move rook to e2. Queen b6. Finally, we move h4 because white need to do something on king side. d4, rook e5. Of course, rook d3 when it comes bishop b5. And d3. Very good dynamic move from Carlsen Magnus. cd3. There is not no mate on g1 because white can simply move back his rook to e1. But when it comes rook f3. d4. Again, very unfortunate decision. The only move here was probably the move queen d2. After bishop b5, rook e3, rook cf8. It is black who has some initiative, but again it is far from over. d4 is a very unfortunate decision because black is becoming very active. Rook 2 to e3. Of course, after rook e6, then rook e6, and there will be simply mate. So white cannot take this pawn. And after rook e1, again some small but very nice tactics, and black is winning. So this is why Dominguez played rook 2 to e3, bishop d3, queen a1, queen d4. Very nice move, I would say, but maybe even it was more easy to play the move rook f2. After rook e1, rook b2. This is how Carlsen could end the game way faster. Just look at this very nice mate. Of course, it is not easy to find all of these moves, especially the move like queen c6. But Okay, Carlsen decided to play in a little bit something else. He decided to play rook e6, rook f1, rook e1, and queen g4. In that position, of course, black is a pawn up and he has very active bishop, so the position is terribly bad for Dominguez. Bishop f5, and this is just on the verge of losing for white. Queen f4, a5, just to defend simply the pawn on b4. h5, queen e7, queen c4. Maybe it was the right time to play the move hg6, because rook c5 is not working. Carlsen should just go for the move hg6, queen c4, bishop e6, and queen g5 again is losing after the move rook h1, so there will be still a plenty of play in that position. Dominguez missed his very good chance. Instead he played queen c4, bishop e6, queen c2, now queen d4 and queen g5, simply winning. So queen c2, queen g5, hg6, hg6, and right now there are no chances for black. a3, ba3, queen c3. Of course, queen d5 was also possible, and simply winning after move a4. Carlsen decided to take on b2, king b2, queen d5, rook c2, a4, king a1. Still a little more precise is required here. Queen e3, bishop f7, queen c3, g5, queen e3, rook e8, rook e2. Again, some small tactics, works perfectly for Magnus Carlsen. Knight b3. Of course, rook e2, then queen d1 is simply would just simply finish the game. Rook c2, queen c2, queen e5, king b1, king g7. There's right now a nice threat of bishop g6, queen d2, bishop b3, and this is the right moment to just simply resign, because white has even no chances for stalemate. Very nice game from Magnus Carlsen. As you can see, it was a very complicated game, and still, after some very bad moves, still white has his chances. So this is why I think that this is very complicated opening, and I think that this is the best choice simply for black to play this system when you need to make a win with black pieces. Okay, so this was lecture number 1. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.